What's up, everybody? I'm Kyle. I've been with you all weekend. I have been your host. Welcome into part 2 of day 3. I know it's complicated and technical, but there are rules on the internet apparently now. So we are here now, joined by Rich Davis and Travis McIntire. Rich is from Cult of Dracula, and Travis McIntire brings you so much stuff that we've heard about in the last few days as the publisher and best beard at Source Point Press.
That's right, beard champion. Well, Chris Tadlock is up there too. I don't know if you've seen him, but he's starting to look like a starving wizard.
Well, he's starting to look like the lost member of ZZ Top.
Yeah.
So I assume he's in the back somewhere, whiling away and yelling at me for not bringing him on this thing. So let's. It's true. Let's start here. We'll start with Rich. Rich, how did you come to be in comics, man?
Man, I've been into comics since I was a kid. My parents actually tricked me into learning and loved to read comics when I was little. The thing I wanted to do was play baseball and play video games. And so my parents started giving me comics as a reward whenever I would do well in school or if I played baseball well. And my little 10-year-old brain didn't realize that comic books were reading. So, I started reading comics, which led to me just becoming an avid reader. And so now I'm a lifelong comics fan and a big reader, all because my parents were very clever and tricked me when I was little.
Travis, why did you choose to take this crazy path? You actually have discernible skills.
Well, yeah, I don't know. I don't know about discernible. My story is not super dissimilar to Rich's. When I was little, at that time, comics were available at supermarkets and things like that. So I would go with my mom grocery shopping. This is once a week or so, and my brother and I were allowed to pick one comic off the rack. And so that's how I started, collecting and reading comics. And I remember very clearly that it turned into a thing where she didn't really care so much if it was a $1.25 book or a cheaper book, but she just cared that we only had one. And so I remember, like, really clearly for me, when the Infinity Gauntlet series started coming out, this was still happening. So this is early 90s. And those books had a lot of characters on the cover because that's how I judged what I was going to buy, is if it did have a lot of characters on the cover. Yeah. And so that was probably, like, for me when I was maybe 11 years old, 10, 11, and that was for me when I sort of discovered that the cyclical, subscription-based kind of model of what comics were, and decided I really liked that, and I really liked the ritual of it, and the, show up to a store. Because shortly after that, I discovered, like, a comic book store for the first time in my life. I wasn't buying my comics at a supermarket anymore. So yeah, for me, it kind of goes back to buying books with my mom in a supermarket, and then getting to Infinity Gauntlet, which really it was the first book I ever followed from beginning to end, month after month.
So how did you find your way to being the person held responsible at Source Point Press?
Oof. Well, it's interesting because a lot of people don't realize, like, I had a career prior to this. So I worked in the science industry and research and development, and it was going pretty well. But I'd also gone to school for creative writing, and I wanted to do something creative. And I had started sort of like futzing around. I was still a huge fan of comics, and I've been writing a script, and I've been talking to different artists. And so I made a little comic, and I submitted it to Caliber Comics, to Gary Reed at the time, who, I thought of at the time as, basically, like, being from Michigan, Caliber was a huge, huge deal for me. And in the 90s, as I was growing up, and you go from being like the guy who's, buying Marvel and DC to being like, oh, Hellboy is a thing, and Vertigo and all these other types of titles. Caliber was a big deal, you know, with Dead World and The Crow and stuff like that, and being from Michigan. So, and Gary took the book. So I got into publishing that way. And from there, I sort of developed into, I got into editing and just sort of helping Gary do stuff. And I kind of realized that I was actually a lot better at managing projects and editing stories and helping other people get their project along to the finish line than I ever was as a creator myself. You know, I was sort of mediocre, really, if we're going to be honest. And it's kind of interesting because it does tie into the skill set that I used before, which is, you know, managing a project and taking a giant big thing and dividing it up into little bite-sized pieces and moving forward. So that's sort of how I got started into it.
And the book that you had at Caliber, it's interesting to talk about Caliber, because so many of the people I've talked to this weekend got their start at Caliber, or Gary was their mentor, or so many. And you were one of the people who's won the Gary Reed Independent Creator of the Year Award, or Independent Comic Book Person of the Year Award, whatever they want to call it. I called it the Gary Reed Not Pat of the Year Award earlier to somebody. So he's watching. So I need to continue to troll him. I trolled him his whole panel.
That's the best name I've heard for it. That's what I'm calling mine.
Not Pat of the Year Award. So
who's the most not Pat this year?
Well, it was Casey, which is true.
Yeah, she's very not Pat.
This coming year, I think there are a lot of not Pats. But this is his response to this. Just 3 dots, just ellipsis. Anyhow, so let's. I just wanted to point out that Gary Reed in Caliber Comics is so important to the industry. If you don't know about him, find out about him. And Travis and a lot of the guys who are Gary Reed disciples are great people to tell you about that. So I'm going to come back over here to Richard, and I want to talk to Richard about Cult of Dracula for a few minutes. I got to turn your microphone back on. So give me the pitch on Cult of Dracula. Whole spiel.
Yeah. Cult of Dracula reimagines Bram Stoker's original tale inside of a Charles Manson, Jim Jones inspired cult. It's witchy, it's weird, it's helter-skelter in a hippie cult dedicated to an ancient blood goddess. So I promise, no matter how many times you've read Dracula, no matter how many Dracula films you've seen, you have no idea where Cult of Dracula is going to take you. We take the traditional Dracula mythos and we blend in vampire mythologies and scary stories that humans have told for centuries in all these different cultures. And we kind of take those loose threads and tie them together to create a new spin on the vampire mythos. So it starts really small, like a Tobe Hooper film. It's very intimate. And then the deeper you go into the rabbit hole, the larger it gets and the more chaotic it gets. And the more you find yourself as a reader losing control along the same lines as the characters that you're following are losing control as well. So it's a little bit familiar. It starts from a familiar place with the same characters from Bram Stoker's Dracula that everybody's familiar with. And then the further you go, the less and less familiar it gets.
So let me ask you this. I know Cult of Dracula has had a life of its own.
Yes.
Before coming to Source Point.
Mm-hmm.
So tell me about that story, kind of how it got to how it started, how you started, and how it got to where it is now.
Yeah, I started way back in 2012, kind of marinating on this idea. And Cult of Dracula was originally conceived as a stage play. It was produced for a month in 2013 in Wilmington, North Carolina at the Brown Coat Pub and Theater. It was nominated for several awards. It won a couple. Extremely successful play, and had the very fortunate opportunity for Tony Todd to see the play. He was in the audience one night. He was in town filming something, and he really enjoyed it. And Tony and I struck up a friendship, and Tony kept telling me, he's like, look, Rich, you don't need to let this go. You need to stay with it. And so I originally adapted it into a screenplay with the idea that Tony Todd would come on board and play a role. I actually created the role of Agent Malcolm Brahm for Tony to play. So spent a couple of years developing it as a screenplay, and some things happened in life. My wife became very ill with kidney disease and had to kind of give up on that aspect of things. But Tony and a lot of people were still very supportive and wouldn't let me let it go. So I decided, I can't make a $50 million film project right now, but I could write a comic book script and see where we could go. And so began developing it into a comic book script, and worked my ass off to shop it to different publishers. And, ultimately ended up here at SourcePoint. They were very kind to give me a chance to prove myself, and I've been busting my butt every day to reward them for that. And you're right, the book is definitely taken on a life of its own. It's already more successful than I ever thought it was going to be. I mean, I seriously thought I was going to sell like 5 copies. I knew my mom was going to buy 3, so if I could sell 2 more, I would be I'd be in in good territory. But yeah, it's really kind of lit fire and got a really big underground buzz to it. And yeah, I'm excited to see where it goes when it finally it's in previews right now, so comic book shops can still order it. And I can't wait till it actually hits shelves nationwide and really gets that wide distribution, and see what readers think.
So when you decided to bring the book to SourcePoint, what was the pitch like? Was it helped by the fact that it was a done product? What was your experience in bringing it to them?
I think Travis can probably chime in on this because he's the one who ultimately greenlit it. I think the fact that I was able to bring a completed project, with already with the art, the colors, the lettering, everything was put together and ready to go. It wasn't just an amorphous idea. So yeah, I hope that gave me gave me a little bit of a leg up, and then the rest of it was me, turning on my P.T. Barnum and selling myself and my book to SourcePoint, which was really cool. I'm glad they listened.
Travis, what was it about his pitch that got you?
Well, I mean, the reality is that we're in the world of small press, we're fairly large, but in the world of publishing, we're still quite small. So for us, when we look at a project, we're looking at the project and do we think it's cool, and do we think it fits our brand, and do we think it fits somewhere where we can put it, in our schedule somewhere. That's like half of it, but the other half of it is, do we like this creator? Do we feel like this creator has the drive? Because this is a very competitive, very hard industry. And I think a lot of people who want to break into it or want to be on the creative side of it maybe don't quite realize that. And so with Rich, it was evident immediately that he was someone that we wanted to work with. Even if we didn't like Cult of Dracula, it would have been, well, what's the next thing that he's going to do? Because, he's in the industry already. He understands how tough it can be. He's willing to do the work. He's willing to put himself out there. He was creating buzz on this completely by himself and without conventions. Because let's not forget, this whole thing is happening without the benefit of being able to actually walk in somewhere and get a 100-unit print run on your own and show anybody what you're doing, which makes it much harder, and the barrier for entry is higher. And so he had all the things that we want, all the things we consider about ourselves. We're grinders. We're going to push it. We're going to get the book done. We're going to, shoot for the long game and not just focus on what exactly are the sales on this now. So he was already that guy. So we were really excited to work with him at all. And then Cult of Dracula came in. It fit what we do so well that it was really like a very easy. It was a really easy decision. I mean, the hardest thing about it, honestly, was when we sort of we kind of came into it. He was already, I don't know, 3 or 4 issues into it, and he was ready to go. He had talked to retailers who were ready to buy, and some of whom who had put money on the table already. And so he needed, production support right away. And I think the biggest challenge was less about, does this book fit? It was more about, like, can we shift things around to get this moving as quickly as possible? Which I think, I don't know, maybe not quite what Rich hoped, but by our standards, it happened very fast. So
I think compared to a lot of standards, it happened very fast.
Mm-hmm.
So,
yeah. Sorry.
No, absolutely go ahead.
What I was going to say, I was really thrilled that that SourcePoint saw the momentum that we were building and wanted to help keep that going. And Travis and Jacob and Garrett have been fantastic to work with in helping me continue to cultivate that relationship with retailers. Because when it came time to sell Cult of Dracula, my wife and I sat down and we put together a database of every comic book shop in the country we could find. I mean, we were just Googling, comic book shops in Michigan, comic book shops in Florida, and we were calling them, and we're calling them every day. And we ultimately hired a couple of people to call with us. So, when we finally did come to SourcePoint, and Travis is absolutely right, we had retailers ready to buy this book, and we had already sold it before it had ever even been really published and produced. So when SourcePoint saw that and was ready to kind of grab that momentum and kind of drive it forward with me, I got really excited. And being able to get it into the January issue of previews and get it on the shelves in March, that was really a fast turnaround, and I was really excited because we never lost any momentum, and that just allowed us to kind of capitalize on the momentum we already had going and push it forward even more.
So when Travis, and you can probably speak to this with some authority because it's happened for you several times. When you have a book that hits previews with as much momentum as Cult of Dracula did, because it's happened with Dead End Kids, it's happened with No Heroine, it's happened with so many books that SourcePoint has put out in the last couple of years. Does that change the way you think about production, and does it change the way you think about your internal marketing? And what does it do to the company?
Well,
does Chris Tadlock have to start drinking no-dos like crazy?
I think that's probably already a thing. I don't. I think what it does, like a book like Cult of Dracula, because they've done so much work ahead of time, what it does to help the company is that it puts the company on the radar of a bunch of stores that maybe don't already know about it. So, for us, that's the number one benefit outside of like, oh, cool, the book is going to be hot, or we expect the book to do well. It's that store, because this industry, I mean, I don't know if this is true, but I've heard a number that about 13% of all direct market comic book stores, they don't carry indie books to the point where they don't carry like Saga, and they didn't carry Walking Dead. But these are top books, right? So for us to get on the radar of as many stores as we have, I think is a huge win. So every time we can get a book that starts to penetrate past, the 800 or so shops that are already very indie publisher friendly is a big win for us. In terms of things like Cult of Dracula, specifically, the biggest logistical challenge we had was the number of stores that were interested in exclusive variants and things like that. It was the only thing I can compare it to was probably like the rush we had with No Heroine, if you remember when that first came out, and it was probably even more than that, to the point where I started to worry that like we're gonna have to start telling people no pretty soon, because I don't want to it's a weird balance. Like you want to give stores the opportunity to have something special, and at the same time you don't want to like undercut your own market. So it was the feeding frenzy was pretty heavy there for a while, and part of that is because we got, because of Rich, stores were very excited about the book, and because I think we got a handful of cover artists that are really something special and are starting to blow up at the right time for us.
Yep.
So one of the things was the exclusive variants. It's a big game that's happening right now, and I know, Rich. There were more than a few.
Oh yeah,
Cult of Dracula.
Yeah, we that was one of the things Jacob and Garrett and I talked about very early on, was building a foundation, a sales foundation through these retailer partnerships before we ever hit previews. And I felt like that was going to be a really excellent way to drive forward, because really by the time Cult of Dracula hit previews, we should have already been in the black because of all of the retailer exclusives and those relationships that we built. And Travis is right. We ultimately ended up turning down 7 retailers who wanted exclusive. They still bug me about every other day. Hey, did somebody cancel? Did something change? Can I do a cover? But we cut it off at 10, and because we wanted to avoid oversaturating the market and kind of make exclusive special. So yeah, there's going to be 10 retailer exclusive covers for Cult of Dracula, plus the A and the B cover. A covers from Buell and Nemeth, from Shannon Mayer. They're both available for previews orders right now. And then we're going to start leaking, I think, the retailer exclusive covers. We should start putting that art up pretty soon to kind of build some more buzz around it. The Nemeth and Mayer covers, they've been out there for a while, and they've been insanely popular. And now we'll start putting out those exclusive artists. But we're working with some great artists: Carla Cohen, Lucio Perillo, Alex Rigel, Ryan Kincaid, Tiffany Groves. Just some excellent cover artists, and the art they're producing is mind-blowingly cool. I can't wait until these kind of hit the open market and see what people do with them.
Well, and there's something that's really unique to Cult of Dracula: the amount of retailers that asked for exclusive sets of the whole run. And there's some stuff that's going to be coming out that are really astonishing. Really astonishing. I'm really looking forward to some of the art getting released. I mean, I saw some today it's some next level stuff, some of this. And some of it's from artists that are already hot, and some of it are from artists that I suspect will be hot soon. So it's going to be worth watching.
So let me ask it this way, because we've been talking so much about. Oh, okay. You got. All right. I see how this works. Teaming up on me in the comments.
There we go.
Up, Jacob? Jacob way in the comments with the links. Guys, hit the links in the comments. We will we'll put these on our website as well. He's got them all. So we will hit these on our website as well. Thank you, Jacob, for that. Appreciate you. But let me ask you this, Rich. We've been talking about collaboration a lot this year. Oh God. We've been talking about collaboration this year in 2021 a lot. So is there someone you would love to collaborate on to get them to do an exclusive cover, or an artist you would like to work with, or just another creative that you would like to do a project with?
Man, there are plenty. I mean, I'm a total neophyte in this industry. I'm brand new to this club with all the cool kids. But I'd love to work with someone like Lee Bermeo or Jacques or Bill Sienkiewicz. A lot of their artwork had a strong influence on me growing up. And so being able to work with one of those, or Stefan Sayek, I'm a huge fan of his art. I think it's just stunningly beautiful. So, you know, right now, I'm thrilled to be working with Henry Martinez on Cult of Dracula. He's a fantastic artist. Recognize him from his work on Ghost Rider with Marvel. And, you know, I count myself lucky just to be able to work, period. But to be able to work with some of these amazing artists, man, it's still a rush and an incredible feeling for me. I haven't developed any of that. I don't take it for granted yet. You know, I'm not. It's all new, and it's so awesomely cool.
So to bring it all back around, because we've talked about collaboration, we've talked about, you know, and we talked about exclusivity and that kind of stuff. Now that you're working with a company like SourcePoint that is kind of big in the small press world or in the independent world, do you feel like that's going to afford you more of those opportunities? And are there any of those that you're already working on the horizon that you maybe can tell us about?
Yeah, you know, I think a lot of that is going to be dependent on, you know, how well I do. I mean, this is a show me industry, and nobody owes you anything. Nobody owes me anything. So, you know, if I can prove some success, then, you know, yeah, I hope that's going to open some more doors. I hope SourcePoint's going to ask me to pitch some more books. They're going to want to work with me more, and you know, I'd love to keep doing this for the next, you know, 20, 30 years.
Yeah, I mean, not to interrupt, Rich, but I mean, we try to. A lot of the creators we work with them over and over and over again because we like them. They have a good work ethic, and generally, I think that they end up really liking us because we're transparent. They know that we have a good work ethic, and everybody's happy. And I mean, I think Rich has already shown that he's that guy, and we're certainly planning on working with him again, whether that's continuing Cult of Dracula further than it is, or whatever the next thing is he wants to do. I don't really think there's any question about that.
That's good to hear.
There you go. We broke some news.
That's
Rich
great
needs
news.
to work on his. Rich needs to work on his. Yeah, I'm going to do this.
Yeah. You know, I do know Jacob and I have been talking. SourcePoint's going to Cult of Dracula was written to be told as a 3-volume story, kind of like the old Hammer films of the 60s and 70s. So the first volume is Cult of Dracula, the second volume is Rise of Dracula, and the third volume is Reign of Dracula. So Jacob has talked to me about being able to produce those. So I think the goal is for Rise of Dracula to hit shelves in January of 2022, and then Reign of Dracula to hit shelves in 2023. And you know, I've been noodling on some ideas. A Frankenstein adaptation that's kind of set in the Atomic Age. So that kind of that Fallout meets Frankenstein feel. I've got a really controversial idea that Jacob seemed to like when I pitched it to him, but he was like, we got to figure out how we could actually make that one work. But it's a loose idea called Shooter. And it's kind of Red Dawn meets The Last Starfighter. But it's about a kid who decides he's going to he's been bullied, he's snapped, and he wants to kind of shoot up, he wants to do a school shooting, he wants to kill his classmates. And an alien invasion happens right as he's about to do that, and he finds himself right place, right time. And becomes kind of a hero by fighting these aliens and saving the classmates that he wanted to kill. So I really wanted to do that as an exploration of, you know, of bullying and also of what drives someone to snap. And I realize that's a kind of a controversial topic, so I don't know if we could actually make that happen, but I think it could be really cool if we took a deep dive into what causes people to end up doing these tragically horrific things.
I recognize the look on this face. There's wheels turning in this head right now.
Regretting you want to work with me again.
What I would say is this: is we're certainly not at all opposed with like heavy content or content that has risk involved with it. What I would say with any, like, I mean, unsurprisingly, we've received several pitches lately that are about a pandemic or things along those lines. And, you know, I think that when anytime you're doing something like that, you're looking at it to be the right thing in the right tone, you know, and the content that you're talking about, I think would be extremely good and very timely, but it would all come down to tone, because there's a way you can do that that's going to speak to people and it's going to be great, and there's a way you can do it that would be trite and disrespectful and probably fall on its face. But you know, you're a good enough writer that I'm sure you're aware of that.
Thank you. And yeah, that's definitely it. You know, you've got to walk a line. And, you know, I had to do that in Cult of Dracula too, because, you know, Cult of Dracula deals with some pretty intense things with, you know, with cults and the way people are manipulated. And, you know, there's a fine line that you have to walk between, you know, shedding light on these subjects and exploiting the people who are involved in them and who are victimized by them. And, you know, that was a very difficult thing that I aware of as I was developing the script for Cult of Dracula. And then, you know, if I get to shooter, you know, I would definitely have to walk that line again. But yeah, that's just where my brain goes on things. I don't tell the nice fluffy stories. There may be some cute animals in my books, but you know, they're in some really, you know, dark situations.
So right now at the bottom scrolling is the information. Do you think you could be kicking butt with Source Point Press 2? Tell them about your project on their submissions page, and there's a big long link, and I realized that I sounded dumb just reading that, but I wanted to make sure the words were on the screen when I said them. So check that out. Thanks to Jacob for sending me that information so I could get it up as a scroll. This is what's great about working with SourcePoint, guys, is that you start working with them, you start hanging out with them, and everybody's your friend. And you could just shoot them a real quick text and be like, hey, I need that information on that project, and they get back to you.
Yeah.
Or you send Travis a text in the middle of the night, hey, I'm doing a convention. And he's like, I'll be there.
Yeah.
You know, it was the tagline of the Retailer Summit a couple years ago. Detroit hustles harder, and SourcePoint hustles extremely hard.
Yeah, that's been our mantra since we started, is just try as hard as possible, because otherwise this industry will just chew you up and throw you out. And you know, I'm sure Rich, owning a comic book store is exactly the same way. You know, you better be trying, you better put in the time, or it's going to chew you up and throw you out.
Yeah. People think that you just get to sit back and read comics all day and that's all you do. But, you know, you got to grind, man. You got to hustle, you know, to sell comics, especially. And then, you know, with what little experience I have creating them, I've learned that ethic, that work ethic has to carry over as well, because people aren't going to open doors for you. You've got to be willing to kick them down yourself. And once you get through, you'll find there's a whole lot of awesome people that are willing to support you and help you. And, you know, SourcePoint's been great. You know, as a creator, I couldn't imagine a better experience and a better working environment than what I have, because, you know, there's so many people who are willing to provide advice and guidance and just support of whatever I need to get this book done. And that's an incredible feeling. It makes the writing come a lot easier, because there are some things I don't have to worry about that I was, you know, always concerned with before. So yeah, SourcePoint's a fantastic company to work with, and I'm very lucky to be here.
Well, that's a funny thing sorry, go ahead.
No, you go ahead.
I was going to say that the funny thing that he kind of just dropped there is that literally every single thing about this book and the process of the book and everything we've done with the book is all in addition to the actual creating and writing of the book. Like every single part of it, as that we've talked about, has nothing to do with like, oh yeah, and also you have to sit down and write the thing at some point and get it edited and rewrite it and everything else. Like, I mean, I think that if you could find a creator like Rich who is comes into this already understanding that, like, yeah, on top of spending all the time and effort and creative energy making this thing, I'm then going to turn around and I'm going to just, I'm going to put in the time on the street, making sure that as many people as possible have a chance to see it. Then you want to work with that guy. You want to hold on to that guy.
Rich, as a retailer, you mentioned it, and I wanted to ask you about it. As a retailer, there are certain things that take up way more time in your life as a retailer than you would expect.
Yep.
So for me, it was always searching for the tape dispenser.
Yes. We're always out.
20 minutes later, where I just had it in my hand. I'm taping bags and boards. Where did I put it?
Yep.
And it's literally right below my face. So as a creator who's also a retailer, I want both answers. What's the one thing in your shop that it sucks up way more time than you'd like to admit because that's just dumb like that? And as a creator, what's the one thing that you struggle with because it slows you down or distracts you? And how do you deal with that?
Yeah. As a retailer, it's the bagging and the boarding, because we bag and board everything that we put in our store. And so it takes up so much of your time to bag and board all of the collections that we buy, all of the new comics that we buy. And then the thing that personally obsesses me in the comic book shop is the way things are displayed. I am perfectly happy to spend, my 12-hour day in the shop completely reworking our feature displays and going through every comic that's on display and making sure there's exactly a finger width between each comic on the shelf. I obsess about little things like that. So making sure that we're merchandised well and that the product is presented well. That's probably the biggest obsession, the biggest time eater that I have as a retailer, because I think the presentation, if you're going to ask somebody to pay $30,000 for a comic, you can't just throw it in an old faded bag and board and lay it on a table. You've got to present it and make it look like it's a $30,000 product. Same thing with even a $50 book. You've got to make it look valuable, because if you don't care, the customer's not going to care. I tend to obsess a lot of my time in the store on the proper way to bag and board. I like 2 pieces of tape, one on each corner. They have to be straight. When we put a price tag, it has to be in the upper right-hand corner. It has to be straight. All of these little bitty details that drive my staff insane. But our store looks really, really good, and people can find things easily the way it's organized. So yeah, that organization, that display stuff, it takes a lot of time, but it's certainly worth it. As a creator, the one thing I've learned that I've struggled with is there's a lot of distractions, because when you're sitting there and you're responsible for writing the book, you don't have somebody standing over your shoulder saying, hey, this is due Friday. This is due Friday. This is due Friday. It's like, you've just got to know it's due Friday. And, nobody cares if you work at 3 a.m. or 3 p.m. as long as you get the work done. So what I've had to do, because there's so many distractions around, I've had to kind of develop, treat it like a full-time job. I have an office in my house where I write, and I go there at 9 in the morning, and I might not leave until 6 p.m. Or later sometimes, but I'm in my office writing every single day that I'm supposed to be there. If I'm not at the store, I'm in my office writing. And so having that discipline, having that work ethic, even if I'm not able to write something that day, I may stare at the computer screen and type the same sentence 20 times. But at least I'm putting myself in that position to create and to be there every single day. And that has helped me develop the discipline to get the scripts done so that nobody's waiting on me to finish my work.
So as a retailer, you bring a different perspective to being a creator. Because you have seen the things that work for people, the things that don't work for people, the things that work for retailers and don't work for retailers.
Sure.
So when you started the project, what knowledge, or is there one piece of knowledge that you have as a retailer that you applied to Cult of Dracula and to anything else you've worked on, and then that you would give to other creators to say, hey, look, this is something most retailers, might not tell you, but because I'm both, I can tell you this.
Right. What I would say is the people aren't going to just stumble upon you because you have a paragraph in previews. You've got to be willing to hustle and promote yourself, and you've got to be willing to pick up the phone and call 50 people and have 49 of them tell you to screw off. They don't have time to talk. And then you've got to keep calling 50 more. You've got to be able to sell your product. I mean, if you're Scott Snyder and you're writing Batman, or if you're Nick Spencer writing Spider-Man, those books are going to sell themselves. I mean, a Batman book and a Spider-Man book are going to sell in any store in the world. But if you're not writing those books and you're not those guys, you're going to have to hustle. You're going to have to go talk to people. You're going to have to message people on Facebook. You're going to have to follow them on Twitter, and, you're going to have to sell yourself. Luckily I've been very fortunate to be able to do that. I've never met a stranger. I'm not afraid to talk to anybody. I would have been perfectly happy working for P.T. Barnum back in the heyday of the circuses. But that really that's the biggest eye opener, is people aren't going to find you. You've got to find them. You've got to find people who are interested in your book. You can't just sit back and hope that they find your paragraph in previews. And not that previews isn't, a huge thing, because it is, because there are lots of people that'll see you there, but it's such a huge magazine and such a competitive marketplace. A lot of times retailers may not even get to the small press section of the book. I mean, I hate to admit it, but there's been a lot of months when I just didn't really have time to go through and look at every single page of the book. So the chances of finding a small press book are really difficult unless you're willing to sell it and hustle like that.
Well, and that's one of the things I wanted to commend you on being here today, because I know FOC is due. So, yeah. You probably, if you don't have your previews catalog sitting right there next to you, you've probably got your notes somewhere real close.
Yeah, it's on my desk.
So I got to commend you on being here to do that, even though you probably are on a deadline for your store. So that was going to be something that I was going to mention, is as a retailer myself, there were months where we were so busy I didn't have time to even look at previews. Mm-hmm. So if I had gotten reached out to by Travis or by Jacob or by somebody like yourself going, hey, my book is on solicitation, or on FOC, this is the dates, these are the codes, the chances that I bought them were 80% higher.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hold on, Travis. Start over.
I was going to say, I think a lot of it, and I think part of the reason that Rich was very successful with his outreach to retailers is that, we as publishers, we know that we don't have the Batman, the Superman, X-Men thing where you just have built-in readership that are in the 80 years of cultural momentum of people who are going to come and pick these books up. We require more attention from that store owner. We need the store owner to be familiar with our books, also be excited for our books. And we know that we're asking them to not only give us money and give us square footage in their store, but we're also asking for some time on top of that, because you're going to have to hand sell these probably and find the customers that they fit with the best. And I think that something that Rich really did really well, beyond just like raising just general awareness for his title, was educating retailers on, look, this is how you can make money on this. This is an opportunity, and how you're going to be able to sell it, who you're going to sell it to, and how. Because so many retailers operate on such a slim margin that I think a lot of them are like, they're looking at it like, well, I could buy 10 of your book and put it on my shelf, and then sell 3 of them maybe, and then have to struggle to sell the next 7, or I can buy 10 extra copies of the Detective Comics that'll sell itself. So you have to get over that. You have to get over that, barrier to entry with a retailer. And I think a big part of that is educating them on how to make money on your book. And I think that's something that Rich did really well.
So, we're running short on time. We got about 12 minutes left, and I know the list is long. So I want to give you some time here, Travis. What is coming out from SourcePoint that people need to be putting on their pull lists right now? They need to be calling their comic store today going, I know FOC is due. Here's the stuff I want to add to my pull list from SourcePoint Press.
Well, yeah, so Cult of Dracula obviously is coming up. Right now, #1 will be hitting stores in March, and it's in the previews catalog right now. A couple of series that I've been really excited about. Issue #1 comes out January 27th. One is called The Eighth Immortal. It's by a new writer named Jacob Murray that I think is really, really quite good. And another one comes out January 27th called Damn Cursed Children, which is sort of a throwback black and white kind of hardcore horror book that I'm also really excited about. And I think it's going to be really good. Both of those come out, what's that, 2 Wednesdays from now. So if you haven't ordered them yet, get them in. I think that they're going to do really well. And then, we also have we have the return of Dead End Kids is coming up. Those are in previews now, and #1 comes out pretty soon. The Suburban Job, which is a continuation of kind of the Dead End Kids type of storytelling, which has done really well. And then a couple of longer running series, Era of Great Wonders, which is sort of a very underground indie take on a kaiju story, is going to be wrapping up over the next 3 months. And another one called, which is a detective noir comic called Black of Heart. #3 comes out in a couple weeks, and that goes through 5 issues. And it's a really great story. It's done really well for us. And I think that there's still plenty of the copies of #1 back there in the warehouse. So if you want to get caught up, now's a good time.
And, I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't talk about previous panels we had, but SourcePoint Press also has Get in the Game from Pat and Rob, who were on earlier. That's in previews now. That'll be in stores
it is.
in the future.
Well, it's not really fair. I can't list off all 50 things.
Well, no, I understand, but I wouldn't be doing my job if I didn't create synergy.
Yeah, there you go.
Well, in our next panel, we have Frank, who you talked about, Dead End Kids #2 or Volume 2, The Suburban Job, and we're gonna have Garrett in as well. I know he's got some stuff coming down the pike, and then we had Team Floppy Cop on Saturday. Their book is going to Kickstarter. You guys have used Kickstarter really
Volume
well.
2 is going to go to Kickstarter. Yeah, we try to make it so if we're going to do a Kickstarter, we're doing it for like a very specific reason. Floppy Cop is a really interesting case in which it's some of my favorite creators. One of my top 5 artists. I love Seth Moose, and the book is extremely funny and extremely well done. And the first time out, as issues, it really struggled to find an audience. And I think that came down to us maybe not marketing it quite appropriately for what it was. And then when the trade came out, it did much better. So what we decided to do this time, as opposed to, because it's very difficult to come up with like, hey, here's Volume 2, it's starting with issue 6, and hope that that's a big mountain. So what we decided to do this time is sort of start with the collection and be like, we're going to go straight to Kickstarter with it and make it sort of like, this is the exclusive version of this, so that all the people who kind of picked up at the trade with Floppy Cop Volume 1 and really enjoyed it have something directly to go to pick that up. So we try to figure out what's going to work best for every book that comes our way. And Floppy Cop is a really good example of something that we feel like has a lot of quality and a long life, and we just have to figure out how to get there.
All right, so Rich, what else do you have in the pike? What else can you tell everybody about? I know Cult of Dracula is a big thing, and it's our big push right now. But tell me what else you're working on.
Yeah, well, we're also developing. We signed a deal with Shore Pictures to develop Cult of Dracula as a film project. So that's going on. They've done a lot of work with Netflix and AMC, Hulu. So Jerry and those guys have been really cool. So I'll be focusing some attention on that. Developing my pitch for the Frankenstein adaptation, which again is kind of a Fallout meets Frankenstein, and where the atomic bomb is, or the creature is a metaphor for the atomic bomb. Working on my pitch for Shooter, and one about, I'm just obsessed with circuses right now, so I'm in a very loose stages of developing a pitch for a Depression era circus, and makes a Faustian bargain to save it. But yeah, that and keeping the store going, those things are keeping me busy right now.
Well, we here at the Comic Book Shopping Experience our goal is to promote the local comic shop. So plug your shop, man.
Yeah, it's Nirvana Comics in Knoxville, Tennessee. You can find us on Facebook, Nirvana Comics Knoxville. We're on Twitter and Instagram as well. But we're a cool little shop. We're very indie focused. We believe there's a comic book for everyone. So we are, no matter who you are or what you're looking for, we've got a comic for you. We're very genre focused. We carry more than just capes and tights. We carry a lot of horror, a lot of sci-fi, fantasy, action, comedy, romance, and our store is divided up to where if you're looking for a romance book, you know right where to go. If you're looking for horror, you know right where to go. Things are easy to find. So it's Nirvana Comics Knoxville, and we'd love to have you guys, if you're in the area, check us out or find us online and send us a message.
All right, so we got just a couple minutes left, and so now it's time for the fun questions. We've done the business, we've done the hard work. It's time for the fun questions.
Okay.
So we'll start with Travis. Favorite Pokemon?
Okay, great. Oh, geez, that's a what's the giant one that sleeps on the
Snorlax.
Snorlax.
Yeah, that's my favorite
spirit
one.
animal.
That's funny. My kids asked me that yesterday, and I said the same thing. I'm like, that big one that sleeps. That's the one I am.
Right? Same. Rich, favorite Pokemon?
Charizard.
Both good options. I have a very small Charmander that lives on top of my camera.
Oh, nice.
So I'm interviewing John Romita Jr. yesterday, and I'm staring at the Charizard because I'm so nervous. I'm just like, I'm going to talk to the Charizard.
He will protect you.
Yeah, right. So I've asked Travis this before, so I'm not going to ask him again. So I'm just going to go back to Rich. Ultimate Nerd Garage. You get one car and one spaceship from all of pop culture. What are you putting in it?
Serenity, and the DeLorean from Back to the Future.
So many people have said the DeLorean this weekend. It's been fun because I think they're kind of cheating, but I can't argue with them.
Or I'll take the station wagon from Near Dark.
Okay,
That's fair.
That's fair. If you guys could grab one IP from all of pop culture and shepherd it into a new project, what would it be?
Me?
Yeah.
I've been asked this a few times. There are two that I really, really want. One is GoBots.
Yes.
And I would want to do like a really just super embittered leader one, who is like, they live in the same universe as the Transformers, but you never see the Transformers. The Transformers are always out there like doing awesome shit, and the GoBots are always just like, this is terrible, and then the other one is Hungry Hippos. I've always wanted to do like a creature feature horror movie based on the Hungry Hippos.
I would read those.
We've run late on previous virtual conventions talking about these concepts. Travis and I have gone into the weeds on these.
They're not new. That's the people. Whenever anyone asks me, they're always like, "Yeah, that." And then they'll be like, "Well, have you tried to get them?" And I'm like, "Yeah, of course. I've talked to Hasbro more than once about this exact thing." But yeah, those would be my top two.
All right, Rich.
I would love to tell stories in the Witcher universe. I'm obsessed with The Witcher. It's just a brilliant game, and I'd love to be able to tell stories in that universe. That would just be phenomenal. Second only to maybe Battlestar Galactica, I would love to tell some stories in that universe as well.
So, okay, we got just about a minute left. I think I'd like to see your take on Battlestar Galactica, Rich. Having looked at Cult of Dracula for a while now, I think I'd like to see that take.
Yeah, it would be much darker. I promise that.
Yeah. Well, and we're treating this weekend like it's a vision board of The Secret, so just put it out there, and we'll use our considerably limited resources to try and make it happen.
We will start that Twitter hashtag campaign. Start
thinking about it real hard. Okay, with our last minute or so, we'll start with Rich. Hit us with the socials.
So mine are super easy. Cult of Dracula is at Cult of Dracula on Facebook. It's at Cult Comic on Twitter, and at Cult Comic on Instagram. And I don't have one of those fancy author pages with the blue check mark yet. So if you want to find me on Facebook, it's just Richard Davis. And if you message somebody on Cult of Dracula, 99.9% likelihood it's going to be me that responds. And I return every message I get, and I reply to every comment that I get. So if for whatever reason, if you want to talk to me, you can find me there.
Travis?
Anywhere you look with SourcePoint Press is us. You can follow me personally at T McIntire1 on Twitter, or at Travis the Beard on Instagram.
Nice.
Travis does have a great beard.
You do have a great beard, man. I like it.
Thanks. I'm thinking about getting rid of it, so get ready for that.
Wow.
That's going to be weird. I wouldn't do it. Don't do it. It's going to freak me out.
Every couple of years, I feel like it's important to see how many chins you've developed. And I think I might be in for some really bad news.
So I am going to take this opportunity real quick to point out that SourcePoint Press, we are going to have a big relationship with SourcePoint Press here on the Comic Book Shopping Experience. We've got some stuff that we're working on that I'm pretty excited about. In fact, it's pretty much giving me life right now. So we will be back in just a few minutes once my camera stops freaking out with Frank Gogol and Garrett Gunn, more SourcePoint Press guys. So